everyone. It's Da Vinci Trucker, just giving you kind of an update on what's going on. If you hear like cars in the background and birds and squirrels and whatever else, I've got my door open. It's going to be a nice day here in Illinois, and just airing out the old apartment, get all that stuffiness, old air out of here. Just got my daily update on my truck. The only thing is they're waiting on parts. I had them do a general inspection to see if I needed brakes, any hoses were swelling, any air lines were rubbing through. Now, as I mentioned in my other videos, I had a air leak, and it's a slow one. I mean, they sprayed it down with soapy water, can't find it, so it must be an ungodly slow one. In cases like this, you just gotta wait until it gets bad enough that you can notice, and hopefully you'll notice it before DOT will. The only thing I'm disappointed in the way when you bring your truck in and you explain something is, I explained to one service manager when I dropped the truck off why I suspected a ignition switch and what my radio was doing, and about the template in there that I think that they were cutting power in the upper gears. After a week went by and I called up, I got the other service manager, so I had to re-explain to them, because they said he wrote that I was having intermittent problems with starting, which I do. That's why which led me to believe it's more the ignition switch than the radio having an internal short. Now, it could be both. So that's why I type up, usually before I go in, I type up a list of what's wrong and why I think it's wrong. And usually, especially with my car, when you talk to either service manager or the place you're going to take it to, they'll usually take that and attach it to their work order, so the mechanic knows why I think that's the problem. They didn't. So now I'm explaining it twice. So hopefully they'll understand. If I get it back and it's still not doing the power like I like, when I come back after my month being out, I'm just going to straight take it to Cummins, and unless I'm near a Cummins place and it's a smaller shop where it's not as busy, that I can have them go through it. I learned this with my when I had Detroit's. Anything motor related like PowerNet, you're almost better taking it to Detroit or Cummins, because they're going to understand more what you're talking about. It's not that I think the general mechanic doesn't know what they're doing. I think they are more given a problem, repairing it, and going. They don't understand, they understand how to use the computer, but not in that aspect. Where Cummins mechanic, if I say in it, I go, hey, it's got low power, I think it's got settings that once it goes into upper gears, it drops horsepower. They'll understand. Now, I explained that to these guys. We'll see if they caught it, because there's no way that motor, bone stock, pulling an empty, would lose anything on a slight incline. I'm not talking like Pennsylvania type mountains. Georgia type mountains, going along I-44 and some of the grades you pull on 44. I'm talking just standard. If you ever run 90, 94 up, or 94 up through Madison, that small grade there. Empty, it shouldn't, even in cruise, when that should determine whether you have pull horsepower or not, it shouldn't drop a stitch. None of my other trucks did. The only time it happened when I worked for the Brown and White, and not UPS, when I worked for JB, theirs were their trucks did it. I knew they were set to do that as you got in upper gears, the horsepower was decreased. That's the only truck I've ever driven that will stone empty on a slight grade is going to drop any forward momentum. And hopefully they understood about the ignition switch. If I get there, it's still doing it. My next step is, yeah, they're great. I can't fault them for it, but I can fault them that their communication between their service manager and their mechanics is bad. Not that they're bad. Although, it went from, yeah, you'll have it back in a week, but they did put a caveat in there. It's going to depend on how long it takes for parts to get here. Well, the guy told me that they were going to get it in that day to look it over to see what they needed. And what's nice is they email you every day and with an update on what they're doing to your truck, but they're not real good at following up. When I brought it in, I think there was, on the inbound side, there was my truck, another truck, and then there was lease trucks that were ideal lease. And that has a whole separate set of mechanics by themselves. So technically, unless their bays were full and I didn't pay attention, my truck should have got in there pretty quickly. Within a day, I brought it in 9 in the morning. At least by the second day, they should have known everything that was wrong. I was right in not imagining things. I had a door controller for my bunk vents that was bad. So all the hoses were connected right. It was just a controller for that. They still did. I'll have to question them. And it's not that dealers are bad. It's just that, I'm old school. If I was technically back then, it was a service writer. They were called. When you brought it in for service, they'd write it up and then it would go in. It's just, back then, service writers were more maybe ex-mechanics that, for some odd reason or another, they got out of turning wrenches to work in an office environment. And that helps a lot. Sometimes it was just, you're not, usually you try to hire within that employment segment. So if you're going to hire a service writer, you usually hire somebody that's either had some mechanics background or worked in that environment. Not that they got a completely different aspect and they don't, let's say, put the detail in that you need. And when somebody brings in, an explanation, attach it to the work order. That way the mechanic gets the full picture, not, because I understand you can't type a book for each problem. If somebody brings something in And I don't do handwriting because mine is horrible. That's why I type everything up in a Word document, print it out, and I bring it in. Other than that, I'm doing fine. Just sitting at home getting projects done, namely his truck. So hopefully they'll get this thing done pretty quick because I got to go run it over to Thermo King to get the APU all straightened out and that. The only pain now is since my microwave didn't work, I tried to bring it back to Walmart. Now I've got to wait until they finally get restocked, and if they carry that again, because I threw the box out. My friend said they used to take it without the box, but they don't anymore. If you've got a microwave, I guess we're going to need storage units for all the boxes you have to keep when you buy something from a store, just in case it goes bad so you can bring it back. That to me is ridiculous, but if they had it in stock, what we were going to do is pull the other one out, test it, the new one, and then if it worked, then put the bad one into that box. But then if the new one went bad, we go back and forth, and they don't carry the same stock all the time. So what happens when that goes bad? I'm stuck with something that I can't use. So I have something when I get the truck back. I happen to have to go get my grill tank exchanged. So I just for grins went into Lowe's and went back and happened to find a more name brand one, and I got the 2-year warranty on it, so I don't have to worry about it. That I'll probably bring in this week, double check to make sure it works, but I'm sure it does. And whenever they get the other one, that'll be a backup, just in case something happens with this one where it's going to be out for, it might take a week or something to get. Or get repaired. I can at least put the other one in and keep on, go back out after I'm week. I'm not waiting another week just to get a microwave back. So how's everybody doing? What are you doing during your shut-in period? You getting projects done? You just catching up on movies that you haven't seen? One of the things I've been doing is playing around with Hitfilm and my Pinnacle, just doing different intros with some of the footage I have, which I couldn't do before. If you ever seen if you're a subscriber of JBG, a lot of his intros I did when I was on Workman's Comp and trying to learn Hitfilm and a couple other software. The things you can do, I know my last video was pretty brief on why I use certain ones. The easiest for me I found, at least with the laptop I have and this, for doing a quick edit, putting in some transitions, and it doesn't bog me down, is definitely Filmora 9. Doing some of the intros I made, I'm using special effects on. That slows your computer down because it uses GPU power, processor power, and that. Plus, I've done this intro pick is something I did in Blender. That's another one that really doesn't For some things, like if you're baking fire or smoke or something, it'll slow my computer down. But just doing general animation and um, like the blue marble texture I put on the lettering, it really doesn't slow me down. Just certain programs, depending on how they're designed and um, what resources they use is different. Like I said, Filmora 9's been great. I mean, but 2 years ago, I'd have told you no way in heck. Now they've improved that thing so much that it's really good. They really need to take some the stuff they've done with Filmora 9 and bring it into their Filmora Pro, especially when it comes to action cams and making adjustments. Well, for today, that's all I have for you. Just wanted to give you an update on the truck, and hopefully, by the end of this week it's done so I can go Monday real quick, get my APU fixed, put everything back in, and get back on the road again because I'm kind of going stir crazy. Y'all be safe, and we'll talk to you later.